brought this back from the US. If you've seen my videos in the past, you might know that I live in Taiwan, where you can't really find stuff like this. I wind up going back once a year to visit family, and that's when I sort of pack up and smuggle this stuff back in my check-in baggage and carry on. But what I have here is a full PSC steering kit. This is everything but the hydraulics. For 35-inch tires, you don't need a hydraulic cylinder and all that stuff. So I know you're looking at this chaos in here and probably scratching your head. No, PSC doesn't send it out to you like this. I already unboxed all this stuff and just sort of tucked it in here so it wouldn't get dirty or greasy as I was doing this other work. But I'm finally able to pull all this out of here and lay it out on the table, and I'm pretty damn excited. There are a couple things that I was really sort of concerned about when I placed the order for this. The first being my already installed transmission cooler. I have a Flexolite cooler mounted in my grill, and the cooler for the PSC also fits in that same location, so I need to make sure they're going to fit in there together. Another concern that I have is the placement of my reservoir. As you can see, I have my compressor down here, so if the two of them can't fit in here together, the compressor is going to have to go.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So I still need to hook up the wiring, obviously, and the hoses, but that's it. Fits perfectly right underneath the reservoir. I got about maybe 3/8 of an inch between the bottom of the reservoir and this top surface here, which is more than enough. So Flexolite bracket with PSC steering cooler. It's kind of janky, but let's see if it works. Sneak this in here. Yeah, I'm not really too jazzed about this.
That?
I might have to come up with a plan B.
What's that, brother?
Now, you'll notice that these lines are dry when I take them off. Don't expect yours to be. I've already had these off. But when you pull these off, no matter how long you take draining the reservoir, these are going to leak. Obviously, because they have fluid in them from this point all the way up to the bottom of the reservoir.
There you have it. Let's see. Slightly modify the power steering pump bracket to allow clearance for the new pump. Using 2 OEM bolts, install the pump. Let's see, it sits in the Jeep like this. Upper passenger side hole is threaded. M8125. So that one is going to go in the top passenger side hole. And then these 2 factory bolts will get lost. These 2 factory bolts go all the way through and screw into the back side of the bracket. Auxiliary, that's going to go in there. O-ring down. That's line in. And then the big mama is line out. All right, it's time for the lines. Okay, so this is the big boy here. So the curved part looks like it goes down here. Maybe through here. Let's see. Install the 8293 hose from the pump to the steering gearbox. O-ring's in place and I'm ready to get this thing fitted up. So I'm gonna try and fish this down through here in the most logical way. Wow, that's it? Really? Huh, okay. Why do they need so much thread on there? Do I have that right? Yep, sure enough, lots of thread left over, so I guess that's it. I'm gonna take a break from the instructions for just a bit so I can get this old box out of here. So I guess now would be as good a time as any to replace that drag link end that has seen better days. I can't remember if I needed a puller to get this drag link end out of here. I think I did, but let's see. Nah, I think I might need my puller. Time out.
Always record. It looked like it was on.
Well, as usual, I got all set up with my tooling and I forgot to hit record. That's not what you want rolling down the highway at 65, 70 miles an hour. All right, so we got 3 bolts holding the steering box to the frame, and then there's 1 bolt up here holding the steering box to the steering shaft. Don't leak on me. So as you can see, our later model, 2003 to 2006 to be specific, boxes are a lot stubbier in this dimension here. So what I'm going to do is use this upper mounting hole as a reference point to get the difference between the length of the 2 boxes. This old box comes in at 160 millimeters from the reference point to the tip of the spline. And the PSC box comes in at 220 from that same hole and the tip of its spline. What that means is I need to get this shaft out of here and cut approximately 60 millimeters out of the overall length. Oh, that was looser than I expected. I wonder if the pitman arm will be as easy. Probably not. Oh, thank God. I got a problem here.
No.
Shit. By the looks of it, it snapped off right before the box, so I might have something to grab onto when I pull the other 2 bolts out. On a side note, this one back here, I can't get that to tighten to spec either, so I'm thinking that that one is probably stretching out like this one did. We'll see what happens. So I checked all 3 of my favorite hardware stores, but because I'm in Taiwan, everything is metric here, so I wasn't able to find the bolts, but I was able to find them on eBay. Last night I ran the line from the pump down through here, so now I need to grab the other end from underneath, and that's going to go in the forward port on the box. This one right here. Install SF02HF adapter fitting in the second port of the steering gear box. So that is this one right here. So after a stiff cup of coffee last night, I decided to commit to my cooler redirection. I got rid of the Flexolite. I'm gonna find something that fits in here a little bit better. As you can see, I got my lines attached to the cooler and run through the shroud here. This is something that I questioned about the instructions, the PSC instructions, where they recommend that you pull the entire grill out, and it's really not necessary. I managed to pull this like a rubbery shroud. There are 2 plastic clips that hold it in. There's one here and there's one down there. You can pry those out and this whole thing comes out. They say to cut a 1 by 2 inch hole. You can see I put the markings on there for the 2 inch, but there's a web back here, like a support web, and I didn't want to cut through that. And I could see that I already had enough space to get the hose through with just a square, a 1 by 1 square. So I just left it at that. But I got both lines on the cooler. both lines on the steering gear, both lines on the reservoir and the pump. At this point, the only thing left as far as the pump kit's concerned is the positive pressure valve and the line for the reservoir. So despite what the PSC instructions say, this is actually not the best place to put the valve. I got it on high authority from someone who is in the know, and they recommended that I get the valve up as high as possible, preferably above the level of the oil inside the reservoir. The reason for that is that if the valve is lower than the reservoir, there's a chance that it could fill up with oil. And if that happens, you got to take the whole thing apart and clean it out. So based on that advice, what I did was mount my valve back here on the firewall. You can see that it's a good bit higher than the level of the oil inside the reservoir. And rather than just fastening one side of the valve on this little M5 nut and bolt like the instructions said, I drilled 2 holes in the firewall and installed 2 1/4-20 nut certs. So this is on here nice and tight now. And if you're wondering if it clears the hood, I actually have about 1 centimeter left to go before I get into the bottom of the hood. If you need a safe point of reference for mounting your valve, aim for the center point between these 2 bolts. This one is the bolt for the grill support, and this is the bolt for the wire loom. And set it up so the cap of the valve doesn't get too much higher than the top edge of the grill support back here. So in order to get this shaft out, you're gonna have 3 bolts to deal with, and those 3 bolts are gonna depend on what you're actually wanting to do. So I want to pull my lower shaft out along with the support bracket. So that means I'm going to go after this 13mm bolt right here that couples the lower half of the shaft to the upper half. And then once that's out, I can come down here and take these 2 15mm bolts out that hold the support bracket to the frame. On the other hand, if you just want to take the shaft out and leave the support bracket behind, you want to get these 2 bolts right here. Jesus Christ, did that top bolt put up a fight. I can't believe I did this shit. That really sucks. Damn, I hate messing up original stuff. There's 3 bolts. Now we get to find out if I made a mistake by waiting so long to do the shaft and putting these lines in first. Let's see if I can get all this out of here without having to backstep. Pretty sure I can get it out the back. Hopefully I don't end up dropping this thing on my face. There we go. So you can get the whole jammy jam out from underneath. Or you can separate the shaft from the bracket with these 2. They look like maybe 10 mil bolts. 1. These factory bolts apparently identify as studs, so I'm gonna have to get my own. Not a big deal. Here I am days later, and I find 2 bolts in the bag that the bracket came in. So you don't have to worry about those are included. But you can see the height difference in those. That makes up for the body lift, the angle that the body lift creates in the shaft. All right, so I got everything laid out on the table. Let's talk objective. That little circle there is like a urethane plug. This part of the shaft is held inside this cavity here by a little clip that's molded to this plug. What this does is allow the shaft to absorb a little bit of energy on impact. I guess Mopar or the powers that be wanted to avoid a situation where if you get into a head-on collision, this shaft doesn't come back through the dashboard and let off some steam Bennett. Actually, I should mention that there is an alternative to what I'm about to do here with this steering shaft. If you get yourself a pre-03 shaft, that steering shaft will bolt right in. Seems to be working. There's a little lip there. So I guess I need, this is a 19 mil. I'm gonna grab a 20. All right, that clears the lip. That's it. That's what it looks like. in two pieces because I hammered it, but yeah, 60 mil. So surgery was a success. I'm happy to say that my shaft from the bearing to the coupler is now 60 mil. Should be 60 mil. Yeah, minus the width of the blade. 60 mil shorter. So this should match right up. Let's get this fished in from the front, hopefully. Yeah, easy. All right, one thing I think is worth being conscious of before you lower the shaft is the orientation of the bracket. So the old bracket fits like this, and you'll see that plastic prong fits through the hole. So I know that when I sit this down in there, this prong has to be at 9 o'clock. All right, here's the tricky part. Get this end in first in the general area. Where's that spline? I can't even see what I'm doing here. Okay. All right, here we go. Spline's on. Now I gotta get the back. All right, plastic pin is in. I don't know if I'm getting any of this on camera, but all right, so it's about to get real. All that's left is the oil. I'll fill that reservoir up and I can fire this thing up for probably the first time in almost a month and a half. If you saw from the beginning of the video, I had a clacking sound coming out of here. You might have seen it in my last video. It turned out to be my belt tensioner and my belt. My belt was stretched out and I think my tensioner was over tensioning. So the tensioner was bottoming out. So I replaced the belt, I replaced the tensioner, and I just went crazy. I did the idler pulley, I did the water pump gasket, everything Mopar in here now. No more Amazon crap. Pull out the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's 2 full quarts. All right, so I found a leak. It's this lower fitting here on the cooler. I didn't have that tight enough. So I got that fitting tightened up and I didn't need to top off the reservoir, so I'm gonna go ahead and start it again. Hopefully I'm not gonna need this. $63.70 to ship these from New Jersey to Taipei. It's freaking outrageous, but they're here. Hopefully they're the same size. They look a little shorter, but the original bolts were a little bit long, so we'll see what happens. So the most important thing here is to make sure that the unthreaded length of the bolt doesn't make it outside the tube on this side here. So it looks like that tube measures just over 93 millimeters. Now let's compare that to the bolt. Just over 80, so we're good. Not torqued yet, but I just wanted to test for overall length and we're good there. As you can see, that's the top bolt. And then we got the 2 bottom ones down here.